Good afternoon, and welcome to this press conference of the International Observer Mission to the presidential election in Poland. Thanks to those of you who have come in person, as well as those who are joining online. You're all most welcome. Next to me here are representatives of the OSCE Office for Democratic Institutions and Human Rights and the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe. We'll begin with some brief statements here, and there will then be plenty of time for your questions. I first give the floor to Dunja Mijatovic, who heads the ODIHR observation mission.
Thank you, Katja. Good afternoon. Welcome, and thank you very much for your interest in the work of the Observer Mission to Poland's 2025 presidential elections. To observe and for the excellent cooperation over the course of the election observation so far. I would also like to thank our partners in the International Election Observation Mission from the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe for their partnership and cooperation. And I'll begin by taking you through a summary of our initial findings, and will then go into few more details on some of the key aspects of our observation that can be found also in the report we are publishing today, and I invite you also to look for the report that is also translated into Polish language. The first round of the Polish 2025 presidential election was competitive, offering voters a genuine choice between distinct political alternatives, but it took place in a highly polarized political environment, which exacerbated existing societal divides and ongoing tensions over efforts to consolidate the rule of law. This also impacted the functioning of some key electoral institutions, particularly oversight institutions and judicial ones, weakening public trust in their effectiveness and independence in the lead-up to the elections. Fundamental freedoms were respected throughout the vibrant campaign, but the use of intolerant rhetoric, particularly targeting vulnerable groups and often amplified online, remains of concern. Media coverage across the spectrum showed clear bias, limiting voters' access to comprehensive information, thus influencing their ability to make a fully informed choice. Campaign finance regulations and their implementation did not sufficiently ensure transparency and equitable conditions among contestants. While the relevant authorities proactively countered multiple attempts of disinformation, cyber attacks, and foreign interference, questions also remain about the lack of fully effective coordination and the enforcement of applicable legislation. The election administration at all levels managed to process efficiently, but transparency of decision-making was limited. On election day, in the limited number of polling stations observed by the EOM, the various stages of the election process were assessed as professional, well-organized and calm, but the secrecy of the vote was often not adhered to. My team of election experts and myself have been in Poland since early April, 10th of April to be precise, with the long-term observers arriving shortly afterwards to observe around the country. This has given us the opportunity to observe the run-up to the elections closely and comprehensively in the whole of Poland. Poland's election was competitive, and as I said, voters could make a meaningful choice between different political options. But the process also revealed a number of challenges that merit our attention. From media bias to campaign finance transparency and judicial independence, addressing these issues is absolutely essential. The professionalism of the electoral institutions is encouraging, but sustained reform is key to reinforcing democratic integrity and public trust in the long term. Now I would like to take you briefly through a few key points of our findings. First, the campaign took place in a highly polarized environment. While campaigning was energetic, the inflammatory messaging that targeted migrants, the LGBTI community, and ethnic and religious groups, including xenophobic and anti-Ukrainian overtones, caused serious concerns. In the absence of sufficient regulation, public officials at various levels and across the political spectrum frequently campaigned on behalf of candidates, and the line between their official duties and campaign activities often seemed quite blurred. Second, the online environment, as concerns of online manipulation, known as inauthentic behavior, in election campaigning have increased across many OSCE participating states, so have our observation activities in this area. However, it is important to understand our role in this area. Our role is to see if the authorities can detect such activities and how they respond. So we assess, first of all, the platforms and the state readiness to detect and address suspicious activities, the legal and institutional arrangements put in place to do this, the effectiveness of any interventions they make, and the state's cooperation with the relevant online platforms. While we do observe campaigning online by candidates, we are not here to detect violations, inauthentic behavior, or coordinated manipulation. Returning to the specifics of the presidential elections in Poland, the national authorities made large-scale and proactive efforts to protect the election process from multiple attempts at foreign interference, disinformation, and cyber attacks. Cooperation formats between platforms, national institutions, and several civil society organizations were in place and operational, facilitating the tackling of inauthentic behavior, disinformation, and illegal content. Nevertheless, coordination gaps, limited public communication about the employed measures, and delayed implementation of EU digital safeguards weakened the response and reduced transparency. With regard to the online platforms themselves, the effectiveness of content moderation varied significantly between platforms, and the lack of information on algorithms and their impact on users remain a concern. Third, legislation and the judiciary. The legal framework is comprehensive and forms an adequate basis to hold democratic elections. But some aspects would benefit from further revision, as many prior recommendations remain unaddressed. As we head towards the second round of the election, the International Observation Mission is looking carefully at the controversy over the establishment of the court chamber responsible for validating election results and concerns raised about its lack of independence, which could potentially weaken public trust in its ruling. For the media, our observation found that Poland's media landscape remains highly polarized, which limited voters' access to impartial but also diverse information. While public media saw improvements following the recent changes, these were overshadowed by procedural irregularities in their restructuring and concerns over financial independence. Debates were fragmented, and overall, the lack of balanced reporting and the perceived politicization of the broadcast regulator underscored the need for comprehensive media reform to safeguard pluralism and support informed voter choice. 5, a few words about participation of women in the election. Women remain underrepresented in Poland and face barriers to full political participation. Only 2 out of 13 presidential candidates were women. While equality between women and men are guaranteed in the Constitution, and women have almost 30% of seats in the parliament following 2023 elections, a record, neither the public authorities nor political parties have made enough effort to increase women's active participation. 6, the campaign finance system lacks transparency and oversight remained insufficient. Campaign finance regulations and their implementation do not ensure equality of opportunity for candidates or accountability. The majority of recommendations from ODIHR and the Council of Europe in this area remain unimplemented. Finally, the election administration, the National Election Commission and lower-level election commissions managed the process quite efficiently throughout, although the fact that sessions of the National Election Commission were not open to the public reduced transparency of the process. Election day itself was calm and the process was professional and well organized, but the secrecy, again, of the vote was often not ensured. Before I finish, I'd like to express my gratitude to the long-term observers working across the country, as well as the team of experts here in Warsaw for all their hard work and dedication. My particular gratitude goes to the local staff. Without them, our observation would not have been possible. So I thank you very much, and I look forward to your questions.
Many thanks. We now move to Lilana Tangi, who is acting head of the PACE delegation.
Merci. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. My name is Lilana Tangi, French Member of Parliament, and as it was said, I'm acting head of the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe's delegation observing Poland's presidential election. Our delegation of 31 parliamentarians from 19 countries, representing all 5 political groups in the Assembly, closely collaborating with our partners from OSCE ODIHR during this mission, and I want to thank them warmly for their constructive cooperation. This presidential election is of critical importance, occurring in a context marked by deep political polarization, as it was said, unresolved constitutional tensions, and broader institutional paralysis in Poland. These elements significantly shaped the electoral environment and public perception of the electoral process. Yesterday, the first round of voting was administered professionally and was overall free and calm. Our 15 teams of observers visited 153 polling stations across several regions, including Gdansk, Krakow, Białystok, Lublin, Pultusk, Ostroleka, Ostro-Mazowiecki, Plonsk, Radom, Lodz, and Warsaw, witnessing an orderly and well-organized voting process. Nonetheless, certain shortcomings raised notable concerns, particularly inadequate safeguards for ballot secrecy. Observers frequently noted ballots entering ballot boxes unfold and multiply voters entering polling booths together, compromising voter privacy and risking undue influence. Our observers noted that a number of measures could be taken, including, for example, instructions to fold the ballot paper twice, the use of envelopes, or the use of slightly less transparent ballot boxes where you can see the papers but not read them. And I would add that this could be done already before the next round. Our delegation also noticed significant challenges beyond the election day itself. Unequal media coverage, particularly from broadcasters, favoring certain political forces, blurred lines between state resources and party activities, and insufficient transparency in campaign financing were among serious issues that remain unaddressed. Furthermore, recent procedural challenges for voters abroad risk preventing some Polish citizens living outside the country from voting. Another critical issue remains judicial independence. The legitimacy of the Extraordinary Chamber of Appeal tasked with adjudication electoral disputes remains contested following concerns raised by the European Court of Human Rights. This situation poses a risk to the timely and impartial resolution of potential disputes arising from this election. Moreover, we express serious concern regarding the intense campaign, particularly on social media, which saw inadequate oversight and raised alarming reports of possible foreign interference, notably from Russia. Polish authorities have indicated unprecedented attempts by external actors to influence these elections. It is imperative that measures to counteract this interference be strengthened. We also recognize the challenging context in which this election occurs, notably Russia's large-scale war of aggression against Ukraine, significantly affecting Poland's security environment and underlying the importance of stable and legitimate leadership. Given that this is the fourth election Polish citizens have participated in over the last 18 months, we strongly encourage all eligible voters to fulfill their civic duty and participate actively in the second round. High voters' turnout will confer strong democratic legitimacy upon the newly elected president. Looking forward to the second round, we call on all stakeholders to reinforce transparency, ensure fairness, and uphold democratic standards. Poland stands as a crucial juncture, and the action taken in these coming weeks will be pivotal in shaping the democratic future of the country. Thank you very much for your attention. Merci beaucoup pour votre attention.
Thank you very much indeed. There's now time for your questions. While you're all very welcome here today, this is a press conference and we will only be taking questions from journalists. And I'd therefore be grateful if you could begin by introducing yourself and your media outlet. We do have interpretation, so you're welcome to put questions in English or Polish. Are there any questions from the floor? Please, go ahead.
Hello, I'm John from TVP World. I'm particularly interested in election interference. Can you tell me about the evidence that you found, or the Polish authorities found, about election interference in this first round? And then can you tell me, in terms of the second round, can you be more specific about what you're calling for the Polish authorities to do? You mentioned unprecedented levels of detection of interference. What do you want the Polish authorities to do? And tell me who is behind this as well, or who you've been told is behind this.
It is, how should I say, many political personality said that there is interference, foreign interference in this campaign, especially the sources of cyber attacks by Russian hackers. It is said by the Prime Minister, for example. And there are also some, how should I say, good reason to think that there were influences from sources who are linked with Russia or other interests to destabilize the political situation and also to develop an ideology or a complotist, how should I say, theories. And that's why we think that this can be a risk and it is a concern for the second round. And we think that the Polish authorities, especially the relevant authorities for cyber attacks, should be very vigilant on this question, because we know that in many countries, even in liberal democratic countries, you have interference, especially on social media, and the influence of ideological unliberal theories are very present, and that can change the mind and the point of view of electors and voters. So I think that this must be underlined.
So, I mean, the question you ask is, I think it's the topic of our time when it comes to the interference and everything that we are experiencing in democracies. We are, of course, aware of the concerns about disinformation and also foreign interference. And this is something that we are looking at very closely in the course of our observation. But we also have to be very realistic. Even the states with the most sophisticated tools and frameworks to tackle the issue of disinformation and cyber attacks and the like are not always able to track the question of all the questions, and you ask it at the end, who is behind it. Sometimes they are successful, sometimes not. But in the case of Polish authorities, what we clearly observed, based on all the meetings we had with the different institutions, is that they do have they established different commission and mechanisms on technical and political level. What we asked them, and what I think is crucial for the second round, is more coordination or enhancing coordination and talking to each other in order to be more effective and more efficient. We also monitored the steps taken by the authorities to counter potential disinformation. And in this context, we also concluded that they demonstrated clearly a proactive approach, but at the same time, the coordination and implementation of certain rules that are very much relevant to tackling online disinformation and attacks is not there yet. In addition to this, I think I already stated in my introduction, when it comes to online manipulation, which is known as inauthentic behavior, the election campaigning have increased across many OSCE participating states. So this is something that OSCE ODIHR already noted in several participating states. So our observations also had particular chapter on this issue. But it's also important to understand what we can and what we can't do as an observers. Our role is actually to see if the authorities can detect such activities and how they respond.
Do you think it had an impact in that first round, the election interference? We've monitored it, we've monitored it, and we've seen that Russia's been active, or at least we're saying Russia. Do you think it had an impact?
That, again, it's very difficult to say this, and it's not the role of the observation mission to detect this kind of, result if it had an impact as such. I think, the time will come when experts or scholars or journalists, can look across the region, the elections, and the impact of real interference. So what I think, is really important is to see that there is a clear, transparent, and also political will is present to try to find the best possible way to tackle it. It is very malicious. It can have an effect in the whole of society in general, not just the elections. So that is something that we can say. But on this particular election is not something that we can state at this very moment.
Thank you very much. Are there any other questions? Otherwise, I check online, or I don't see anything. No more questions from the floor? In that case, we'll stop there. The report with the initial findings of the international observers, as well as the press release, will be available in both language versions as you go out, and also shortly to be published on ODIHR's website. We will be holding another press conference in 2 weeks from now, where we will obviously have been following the second round very closely. So you're already invited to the next press conference in 2 weeks' time. Thank you very much.